Hi all, welcome back to the final whistle then for another stream, and we're going to react to Khun Top's interview. And yeah, there's been a lot to say as the Leicester City owner has finally spoken to the British press. It's been just under 10 years ago that he did speak to the British press when Leicester City was doing well, succeeding and doing absolutely fantastic. But he hasn't spoke to him since, but he has now decided to sit down and do a lot of interviews with Rob Tanner, Rob Dorset, John Percy, Owen Palmer-Atkin from Radio Leicester. So there's a lot to discuss in what Top has had to say regarding potential relegation, John Rudkin, the way the club's been run, and everything like that. Rob will be joining us shortly. He's just on call at the minute, so he's told me to crack on and let's chat. If you've got any questions for Rob Tanner, of course, get them in the comments. He said he's going to join me ASAP, so yeah, be sure to do that. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new. You haven't subscribed already, please get down and do so. It'd help me out massively if you can all subscribe. Right, let's get into it then. So Khun Top, his interview, he sat down with the media. He's obviously, this one's been a long one in the pipeline. And I always find with quite a lot of businesses, they only speak when they succeed, do well. But then when they're not doing well, they don't speak at all, do they? You barely hear a thing from them. So, right, let me go through these articles with you, and then we'll get on to it with Rob and we'll chat with him. Hi Jack, greetings from down under. Hello, Rich. Looking forward to hearing what Tanner's had to say. Well, we'll see what Khun Top's had to say to Rob Tanner. John Rudkin can do nothing wrong in Top's world. Yeah, Terry, you might have a point. Me thinks he's steadying the club before sale. There was a little thing today, wasn't there, about bloody Manchester City or something. Top said the club's like his son and you would never walk away from your son. Strong words. Yeah, I've read that, Terry. Hi, Jack. Rob Tanner. Is he any good? Rob Tanner is the, well, I say ex-correspondent now for Leicester City. Rob worked for the correspondent of Leicester City for a number of years. A lot of good articles. There's some on there today, what Rob's obviously put out. So, right, let's get into the articles of, I'll tell you what, we'll go with John Percy's first. Let me go with sharing my screen, and we will go with John Percy's from the Telegraph. Right, here we go. So if everyone could see that, that's fantastic. Leicester owner, selling the club is not an option. I want to continue my father's work. Top Srivaddhanaprabha refuses to admit defeat in stewardship of club and explains why he's sticking by controversial director of football John Rudkin. John Percy, right. It is almost 10 years since Leicester City captured the nation by winning the Premier League title, so it feels like a perfect time for the club's owner, Aiyawatt Srivaddhanaprabha, to finally open up. So it's been just under 10 years since he has done that, so it's been a long time since Tops obviously spoke to the media. This is the first public interview with a senior Leicester official since 2016. And to put it lightly, quite a lot has happened in the life of the 40-year-old Thai businessman known as the club as Top. So Top basically said it's like a movie, like a super drama on Netflix or something he says for many Leicester fans. However, the past few years have seemed more like a horror film, which it is. It's gone from an absolute great film to bring something else out. And it's not absolutely what you want to see in the next part of the film. So after the glorious highs of winning the title at 5,000 to 1, shots to rampaging around Europe in the Champions League, plus a maiden FA Cup win, there have been 2 relegations, 1 promotion, and 9 different managers. So this will be now our 4th manager in what, a year and a half. It's crazy, honestly, it really is. It's quite baffling, to be honest. Worried relegation is a real possibility if the team keeps failing to turn up for more than 45 minutes and looming points deduction against Oxford. I don't think we turned up at all. But yeah, the points deduction is one that we discuss. Since obviously winning the Premier League title, there's been a lot of mismanagement, incompetence in the last 5 years, and there's been a lot of negligence, should we call it, in decisions that needed to be made but hadn't, and a lot of poor mistakes have been made with wages, contracts, signings, and all that, and we've gone down because of it. So there we go. Hello all, how are we? Hope you're well. Katie, hello, how are we? Right, so Srivaddhanaprabha also endured the unimaginable grief of losing his father Vishai in a helicopter accident in 2018 at the club's King Power Stadium, which claimed the lives of 4 other people. There is much for Top to reflect on from the past decade, although most Leicester fans are only concerned about the here and now, which obviously the last 5 years in what we're looking at. The Leicester story is that we tried to create the underdog story, he says. We tried everything and we did a lot of things to make sure that the Premier League, even football in the UK, looked very interesting. When we won the league, no one believed or thought we could win. We set the standard and everything is possible in any way. A lot of players have left. A lot of new players have came in. We tried to create new things. We won the FA Cup. We were in Europe and then we go down. It's too many dramatic things that have happened at the club. It's not easy for Leicester anymore because of the size of the club, but does not match what we tried to achieve. So yeah. Right, let's get my mate Rob in. Rob, how are we, mate?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Well, we say we're all right, but it's been like you say, the demise of Leicester City has caused a lot of stress, a lot of angry fans, and a lot's happened, hasn't it, Rob? In what should we say, the last 5 years, and he's now decided after just under 10 years to speak to you, John Percy, Rob Dorsett, and all the British media to sort of look at what has exactly happened, and maybe they're not the answers that Leicester fans expected from him. To be fair, they probably expected a lot more from Top in these interviews, to be maybe a lot more corresponding, a lot more honesty, as I think Leicester fans were hoping for.
Well, I think he was quite open and honest. I mean, let me explain how it worked.
Yeah,
and obviously the writtens and the broadcasts are very different. You know, broadcasts have to be filmed. We sit casually around a table with him. He come in. We spent best part of an hour with him, and we all chipped in. There was 5 of us, and we all chipped in our questions as we went through. I mean, you've got to ask him challenging questions, but you've also got to be respectful as well. This is a man that hasn't done media in the UK for 10 years. You know, you don't want to scare him off, because you want this to become regular. We all want this to be regular for the club to talk a little bit more to the fans in an official capacity like this. I mean, they do talk to the fans through the fan advisory board, anyway. But you know, we do want the major hierarchical figures to speak. So you've got to be respectful, as always, because you're a professional journalist. You know, you're not a fan, an angry fan that wants to vent and challenge, and you still challenge, but you do it in a professional way. So he was asked a lot of challenging questions. PSR was a tricky one because it's an ongoing legal matter. Yeah, but he did offer some on PSR, and but all the other topics, you know, John Rudkin, Susan, why she left, what his plans are for restructuring of the leadership team at the club. I mean, I couldn't get it all into my article. There was so much, you know, I only get one hit of it. But I think he was quite fair. I've looked a little bit at the reaction, and I think this was predictable. The reaction that a lot of fans, it wouldn't, you know, it wouldn't go far enough. It was impossible for it to go far enough. But it's the start. It's the opening of perhaps a little bit more of a connection, a communication line between top and the fan bases. So, yeah, I thought it was a worthwhile exercise for him. I think he has addressed a number of the issues that people want to ask. I mean, to be honest, a lot of the people that cover the club have sort of highlighted some of the issues that he addressed as well. So, you know, a lot of it shouldn't. I don't think there was going to be any massive shocks from what he was going to say. I don't think he was going to blow us all away by with anything really, because, you know, we do talk to people around the club as well and get an idea of how they're thinking and present it in our own articles. So, but it was interesting to do it again. I mean, the last time, as in the intro of my article, you know, the last time was sat in the boardroom with the Premier League trophy just behind him. You know, they've only just collected it, and it was amazing. Now it feels like, you know, 10 years later, the club's gone full circle back to how they were when they first come in. And so, first of all, asked him what went wrong. I thought it was interesting that he described the club well, used the analogy of it's like a Netflix documentary, because I've always said that covering Leicester has been like that. You know, it's like a soap opera sometimes. There's never a season when it's dull, and when, you know, mid-table obscurity, but there's always something going on, and there is this season again, you know, with the PSR prospects and the fact that the fans have really turned against the hierarchy, and they're demanding answers and they're demanding change. Well, they've started to get a few answers now.
Rob, let's take it back to 3 months ago. He did sit down, didn't he, with Leicester City, whether it was PR or whatever it was, is what people want to call it. He had to just answer it the way the club wanted it answering and not how the fans would have looked at it. But he sat down 3 months ago with, I think it was Dan Bates, wasn't it, who obviously interviews with Leicester City and all that. And he spoke about communication. He spoke about how he wants to be a lot more on the front foot with the fans, be a lot more honest. In them 3 months, we've heard nothing since, which we're thinking to ourselves, he doesn't actually come to games. He's not really doing what he's saying he's doing it. And I always find with how it's the reporting side of things is like, with the fans, it's a lot gets said, but there's no action, you know, like there's no action towards what he's exactly saying. And I think this is what the frustration is with the fans, that they're seeing him talk, but they're not seeing the actions of him exactly what he's saying he's going to do. And I think this is what there's just radio silence from him, aren't they, on what exactly is it happening? How are you going to fix this, Tom?
Yeah. Right. Well, after he did that that in-house interview with the club, and obviously that's going to be, you know, very softly. It's a club employee interviewing the club chairman. So, but I think that was the first move. But then the Queen Mother died in Thailand, and you know how closely linked the family and the company. And the company's called King Power. Very closely aligned with the royal family over there. It is a difficult political situation in Thailand currently as well. And there was an official mourning period. So I think he stayed out there quite some time for that. But also, you know, as he said to us in the meeting there, he said, I've got, you know, 6,000-7,000 employees in King Power that I need to I need to look after as well. And I mean, he's appointing Monica to come in, this general manager to come in and be his eyes and ears again. I think he acknowledged in the interview with us that, you know, it's become too difficult for him and John Rudkin just to do it all on their own. So he employed a new chief executive at King Power so he could focus a little bit more on Leicester, because he has taken his eye off the ball with the club. I don't think anybody would deny that. No. So that's given him an opportunity then to have a look at the club and more closely. The technical director's coming in soon, very soon. Then there's going to be a commercial manager coming in, and then a new CEO, because he's the acting CEO, interim CEO as well at the moment. So that will free him up then, and you've suddenly got a whole new level of management at the football club. John Rudkin will then work with the technical director, but with the technical director that's at the coalface. I mean, this is my own personal opinion. Is it worth waiting until the technical director comes in to bring the next manager in so that he's involved in that? Because it's got to be somebody he's going to work with very closely, because that's going to be his role. I think it would be a bit of folly to rush a manager in now. In fact, my personal opinion is they should have an interim manager until the end of the season, somebody with a bit of experience that can work with Andy King and perhaps guide him. Nigel Pearson would be ideal, obviously. But somebody like that, just on a short-term basis to the end of the season. But so I think if you're going to do this properly and logically, then the technical director needs to come in pretty soon. The process of identifying the next manager should be underway already. And then they can input on that. You'd think so. I mean, then you would input. His input would then come into that, because he's got to work closely with the next guy in. You can't keep going the way they're going, sacking managers every 6 months. It's not sustainable and it's damaging.
Yeah. I always, I said this, you don't want to turn into Watford. Watford's owner, you see how many times he gets rid of a manager a season. I think they have bloody 3-4 managers sometimes, and you think, Leicester City don't want to turn into a Watford, should we call it, where you're not really content with the manager that you've hired. You're not really behind him, but then you're already looking at another person. And I find with Leicester that they always use the phrase of, it's long term, it's a project. And we've had this will be a fourth manager in a year and a half now. We've had Cooper, we've had Van Nistelrooy, and we've had Marty Cifuentes in there. So a lot's happened. But then if you go from now, since he's last spoken, which would have been the Premier League title win, to now, there's been a massive shift, hasn't there, in disconnect, anger at the board. Susan Whelan's left. Players have gone, wages, contracts, and all that. PSR, even though he says that I don't really know much about PSR, but in a football game, Rob, you've always got to know what PSR is, haven't you? It's, financially in that as a club.
Sorry.
That's not Rudkin, is it?
No.
No, you as an owner, when you're a football owner, you've obviously got to know about PSR, haven't you? Whether you sit there and say, but I didn't know much about it, I didn't realise what it was. You've got to be on the ball all the time with it, haven't you? With the people you obviously working with and around the club.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he does know about PSR. I mean, what we've got to bear in mind, and it's easier for us being a written media. It's not his first language. No. So sometimes when he says, he might use a phrase and it can be seen one way or taken another. We have the opportunity to seek clarification on what he meant to say. When he's doing a video broadcast, TV broadcast, then there isn't that opportunity. It was unfortunate that he said Marty needed more time, because we all knew what was coming that day. So again, I think that was just a little slip up, because I'm sure he knew what was coming, and he was certainly very honest with us about the situation as well, the writtens, before he went and did the TVs and stuff like that. So I'd give him a little bit of slack on certainly on that. He would know what PSR is. I mean, but to be honest, haven't we all been a bit baffled with PSR? I mean, we've got
That's all. It's exactly what it is.
What are the rules? Where are they written down? You know, what constitutes
the top six? But
but what constitutes a deduction? You know, we know the broader terms in terms of it's the academy, it's the women's section, it's investment into the infrastructure. I just think the whole PSR system is a shambles. And,
it is.
And I think most journalists that I speak to think it's not achieving the purpose why it was brought in. It was brought in to protect clubs like Bury and Rochdale, and clubs that are low down that could go out of business if they're run badly. It's not there to protect and be a safety cushion for the elite of the Premier League to stop all the aspiring clubs. You can see it now you've got Forest, you've got Villa. Newcastle can't spend the money, and they've got pots and pots and pots of it. But it is a bit of a farcical situation. But Leicester have not managed it very well. Let's be honest.
No, they haven't.
They haven't managed PSR. They've overreached a little bit. And as Top said in the interview, he said, at that time, we felt we had to invest. We had to maximise what we'd achieved to try and go to the next level. And if I hadn't have done, then I would have been criticised the other way. So, it's just turned out bad for them because they had that incredible season where everything just went wrong for them.
I think Robert took the interim Leicester job. He can write at the same time.
No, I mean, I have my opinions on which direction I think the club should go now, because they've got a big summer ahead. They've got
massive rebuild,
so many players out of contract, and it's an opportunity then to get that wage bill really back under control. I mean, this has been going on for 3 years that they've been trying to get this wage bill back under control, back into PSR. And they've got a great opportunity now. It was going to always take a few windows to try and get back to parity, but they've got a chance this summer. I think there's only then Yannick that's left. A lot of them are leaving. I'd be surprised if many of them, if any, get offered new deals, and you just have a complete and utter rebuild. And that's what I mean about having the right manager in then to do the rebuild, because that's the important time. This season, it's just about survival. Just keeping your head above water, and then perhaps you can start to swim again next summer.
Yeah, like Steve says here, it is a shambles, but the rules that we have to follow, if the club have fallen foul of the rules, they deserve to be punished. Which it is a fair point, Rob. We spoke about it last season, didn't we, in the Premier League, that they should have took the slap on the wrist and said, okay, then we'll hold our hands up, take the punishment and move it on. But Leicester have been very much with PSR that they want to fight it as much as they can. And then Dale talks here. Khun knows exactly what the issues are at the club. It's just a matter of if he's got the ball to do what's needed. And
what's needed?
As in,
I would answer. I'd throw that question back and say, well, what's needed? What's he need the bottle to do? He's bringing in a chief executive. He's bringing in a technical director. He's changing the senior management structure at the club. He's changed the manager. Obviously, he saw that. So I think there is some action being taken now. It's taken too long, but there is some action being taken right now.
What's Steve put? The proof is in the pudding. If we got points deduction, I think that's what he's trying to say. In the club decides to fight it, it just shows they haven't learned from the previous years. Would you say
I don't think they will. I mean, there is an appeals process, and we don't know the outcome.
No,
of the PSR. We suspect there's going to be a points deduction, but they've fought PSR for a number of seasons now, haven't they? They've managed to successfully argue that they were neither a Premier League or EFL club at the time of their first relegation from the Premier League. So that all the rules have been tightened up in terms of the legalese, the wordings of them. To move forward, so the net is tightening around them, and I think it is unavoidable. They'll have to take a sanction, but then hopefully they can put PSR to bed and just carry on and get on with it. I mean, because that's what we're all waiting for. That's why I'm saying this season is going to be so difficult. I can't see it getting much easier between now and the end of the season, and then next summer is so important, because that's when they can perhaps have that reset, restart, and rebirth.
I think it was you who said last season, wasn't it, that it was going to get worse before get better.
Yeah.
You need to get through
Well, it has
this
as well.
tricky bloody period. I don't think Marty would have thought to himself, I'll be sacked after 6 months at Leicester, but that's the way the cookies crumbled and the results. And yes, people will say, yeah, but it's the players' fault. But as a manager, you still got to be able to somehow find a way of getting the best out of this squad to get them results on the board. And then football's a results business, isn't it, Rob, as a manager? If you're not pulling your weight and getting the best out of what you've got, and then results aren't coming and you're sitting 14th in the championship, then the manager, the book falls at him, doesn't it? With obviously the players.
Ultimately, it always falls at him, doesn't it, really? And in terms of performances, I do have a little bit of sympathy for Martin Cervantes when he came in, because there were some players that wanted to leave that they couldn't get rid of. There are some players that didn't want to play for the club and still look like they don't want to play for the club. Senior players as well. I think it took him a little bit too long to realise that. But then he did what a lot of fans do. And some people have been questioning me on X about this when I said, look, he's tried to transition the team. 10 of the 20 in the matchday squad against Oxford have played academy football. So, and at the end of the game, you had Jeremy Mongar and Louis Page, you had all these youngsters on. Ben Nelson came off at half time, but he's come in and been, the centre-back partnership, it was Yannick and Wout, wasn't it, at the start of the season? And recently it's been Ben and Caleb Okoli, another young defender. So I think he did try to transition it. But when you bring youngsters in, it's always difficult. It's got to be the right time. It's got to be the right moment. And this has been a difficult moment for youngsters coming in because of the atmosphere in the stadium, because of the inconsistencies on the pitch, because of all the issues around the team. It has been a difficult one to blood youngsters, but he's done it. It's not worked because you have got those inconsistencies, not just from game to game, but in games. There's been so many inconsistencies. And I thought the Wrexham performance, first half was okay. Second half was awful. It's like the whistle blows for half time and you don't know who's coming back out for the second half. But so I think, he's had to pay the price. It probably wasn't the right appointment in the first place. I think they have to, and this was a part of the interview we did with Top that I couldn't include in my article because it would have been too long. He's talking about identity and how the team was playing. He was talking about, we used to be a counter-attacking team, win the ball back high early on and press people. And then we went and became a possession-based Pep Guardiola type team. And he said, what are we now? We don't know. So, there's got to be, and this is the technical directors coming in, he's got to instill some sort of football identity back in this team, a DNA. Leicester, everybody knew what the DNA of Leicester was. When they were successful for years, year after year after year, there was the Leicester DNA. We sell one asset, we recruit, we invest that money wisely and go again and then build and build. And they lost that. They lost that in 2022. They lost that identity. Tried to become a big spending, no selling club, and it's all spiraled from there.
See, this is that's the criticism with me with Top, that they say he wanted to play a Enzo Maresca style of football, right? Pep Guardiola, possession, whatever, right? And then there was a sort of report last season that it was like, well, Rudkin wanted Wilder or Dyche, that type of manager, and then Top wanted a different manager. So they need to be on the same wavelength, don't they, of what they're actually getting here, because one can't go one and one can't go another. As a club, you've got to decide together, not one wanting everything else.
Absolutely.
Do you think that's communication? Do you think that's the lack of communication between the board, that all people want different things and then they're not coming down to the decisive part of it? What do you actually want? How do you want us to play? Where are we going? What is the future plans? It just feels like they confuse each other and then they're just making a rash decision without even thinking about it.
Yeah, and exactly that's why this technical director's got such a big job, because it's going to be their responsibility, I think, to communicate with Top and say, okay, what sort of team do you want? What sort of team do you want to see on the pitch? And then all of that stems from there. The next manager has got to play to that system and that philosophy. Every player they then recruit has got to fit into that. philosophy. I mean, they all started to go. I mean, I keep going back to the 2022 transfer window. You know, when we had Patson Daka come in, Buba Samari, and Yannick, Ryan Bertrand, all those players come in. I mean, I remember at the time we had Sunchu, you know, Fofana. You had like really aggressive, mobile centre backs that could defend spacing behind and press really high up the pitch and condense the pitch and put pressure on. And Leicester were about winning possession back high up the pitch. Then you bring in somebody like Yannick. With all due respect to him, you know, he's not that type of defender. He likes to sit deeper, get on the ball, have a whole pitch in front of him, not behind him. It was when they went down that road in terms of recruitment, I think that's when they lost their DNA. That's when they lost that philosophy and that identity. And it's been, the recruitment has been really all over the place since then in terms of what type of player they can. And then they got to the stage where their hands were tied as well because of PSR, so you couldn't go out and spend money. And then you're shopping in a completely different window, which is where they are now in this window. There's only loan money available. There's not big signing money available now. So then looking to get in a couple of loans before the window shuts, just to try and give them a boost. You know, obviously you let Vout go, so you've got to replace him. If Ben's injury, his knee injury from the weekend is serious, he could be missing a few games, and you're just down to Yannick and Caleb then. I mean, obviously there's a couple of Bader can play centre back if he needs to, but again, that's not ideal chucking Bader in. No. I mean, they had the young under-21 centre half on the bench against Oxford as well. This isn't an ideal situation to be blooding a load of youngsters.
That's what I said, and this has been our own doing for overspending on wages, contracts, you know, transfer fees on players that shouldn't even be paying that amount of money for these players. You look at some of the contracts that have gone out. Harry Winks for a start, 90 grand a week. Buba Samari, 80 grand a week. And you sort of look at the wages and you think, bloody hell, these lot must be absolutely fantastic players. There must be the bloody prime Brazil of when Brazil were good, when they had Ronaldo and bloody Ronaldinho and that. And you think, there's this Leicester squad, that good is it? And then you look at it, and you go and watch them and you think, well, this ain't what they're getting paid to do, is it? This ain't. I think this is the mistakes that they've made, Rob, and they haven't been putting it right. They've just been like, how do I put it? Every transfer window, we keep making the same mistakes every time. We're not accountable in ourselves to say, you know what, this has to stop. It's like we have one plan and they're just going with that plan, even though it's like executing them way beyond where they don't need to be. Mm. They've took the wrong path many a times. They've made many mistakes, but it's up to these people who are high in the board to say, you know what, yeah, we hold our hands. We've made the mistakes. Yes, we've paid these contracts out. Yes, we've done all this. We need to just take it down now and say, yeah, we can't be doing this anymore, and actually get it back on track. But I just don't know if there's a way back of them doing that. All the mistakes they've made, is there a way back for the board now in making the right decisions? Because I think with the fans, they've lost the trust in them, haven't they, altogether? They're saying that we can't trust these people. These people shouldn't be in this type of job if they can't be doing these type of things. And what's your sort of reaction to that before we obviously discuss little parts of the articles?
Well, he's not going to sell unless he said
that, didn't he? Yeah.
Unless a Saudi Arabian prince comes in, he's not going to sell the club because can you imagine the damage that would do to his father's legacy in terms of, you know, leaving it now? But I think he's determined to do it himself as well. He's trying to make changes to make that happen. It's just naturally all those mistakes that we've discussed and all the things that we've discussed that went wrong and the reasons why they went wrong.
Yeah,
they're in the past now, right? So we've got to wait now until there's a situation, a period where you can then go again. Because they tried to sprint when they were just running in the Premier League, because they tried to chase the Champions League every season, and it proved not to be realistic, and they've paid a heavy price because their revenue, the club's revenue, especially through COVID and the shelved plans for the development outside the ground, that their revenue would have been boosted massively. by building that hugely. But obviously that's had to be put on the back when they got relegated in 22-23, you know, when they just finished 8th the previous season. So, you know, but that's all in the past now. They've had to take this pain all the way. The club's had to endure all this, and the fans have had to endure all this now to get to zero again, to get to ground zero. Ground zero will be this summer. So you just got to survive this season. You've just got to manage and get on with it until the end of the season. And I'm sure there'll be lots of angry fans say, well, we don't trust you then to do the reset moving forwards.
This is it. Yeah.
Well, let's see who he brings in. Let's judge them, because they're going to be the people that are going to influence it. Top makes all the major decisions. Yeah. But I'm sure if he sees it, he feels like somebody's doing a good enough job and he can trust these people to do it. Let's see then whether they can do it. I mean, he can still be the owner that signs off the checks, but the club can still be successful. But it all depends on the appointments he makes now, and then the decisions that are made in the summer. That's when, you know, you can say. I mean, I know fans will say, well, he doesn't deserve another chance now because of what's happened over the last few years and stuff like that. And they've got every right to think so. But, you know, he is the owner of the football club, you know, and unless somebody's willing to come in and throw a load of money at him to buy the club, I don't think he's going to be leaving.
Yeah, unless it's someone like a bloody Manchester City type of owner, then, you know, probably maybe consider. But yeah, we're not going to get that right now, are we? Let's be fair. Yeah, I think Leicester's fans' frustration and anger is that he just looks distant from the club. He just doesn't. He's not making the decisions. You know, like taking control of this situation. It just feels like he's leaving it and leaving these people in charge who have been making these mistakes and not being held accountable for them. And I understand it.
You can say that, Jack, previously. Yeah. I think right now it's clear that he is making decisions on a technical director. It's restructuring. So I think he is making decisions now. He's made the decision to get rid of the manager as well, because I think it was pretty clear that to anybody that wasn't working now for a number of ways. I mean, there was like little glimpses that it might have worked for him. There was moments in games where you think, okay, that's the benchmark now. That's what we want to see week in, week out. We didn't see it week in, week out. So he's made that decision as well. So I don't think he can be accused of sitting back and just letting this happen now. But, you know, let's judge him on what happens next.
Well, that's where you draw the line now, isn't it? And see what he does, obviously going forward after these interviews, and see if he has got the actions rather than the talk that these people just think he's got. Let's have a look at this part, Rob. I'm on bloody John Percy's article at the minute.
That's all right,
mate. I still do not understand why we went down. Obviously, Leicester went down, didn't they, in 22-23. They brought, obviously, Daka, Samare, Yannick Vestergaard for 50 million quid between. Crucial made decisions to sell any of these first-team players. A model which we've discussed is they'd sell quite a few, didn't they, prior with Harry Maguire, Mahrez, Drinkwater, Chilwell, bringing in well over £200 million. But the summer of that summer was the decision was made to keep the squad together. Endured the pressure, was on to continue progressing and stay in Europe. But Leicester missed out and were relegated the following season. Top did go and say, if you ask me about that time, I still don't understand why we went down. I have no idea. I think the main problem we had was no experience of a relegation fight. We were so relaxed that we were going to be okay. I could not play, so I tried to help in every aspect. The Premier League is difficult, but shouldn't have been in that position. It was like everything turned against us. I talk about that, Rob, and if someone said to me in that August, before the season kicks off, you'd be relegated that season, you'd have laughed, wouldn't you, physically? You'd have said, well, nah, that ain't going to happen. But then when you sort of look at it, you know, like as the season went on, and I don't know when you sort of pinpointed it to Leicester City can really go down here. I don't know when your sort of pinpoint was of that season where you thought
the Southampton game.
That's when James Maddison came out and had a go at you, didn't he? For the reason that was it the tweet that you put out? Something about
it was a story I wrote on the back of the Southampton away game where they didn't play badly, but they lost 1-0. They struggled to get a shot on target, and at that time they couldn't keep a clean sheet. A bit like now, 23 games without a clean sheet. It's important to keep clean sheets, and they couldn't keep them. and I just tweeted out my story, as I always do, with the link. And I just said, look, if you can't get shot on target, you can't keep a clean sheet, let's not be blind to this. This is the recipe for relegation if it's not addressed and if people don't wake up to it.
Yeah.
And that was the game where I thought, if they keep going like this, they're going to be banging trouble. Not really truly believing that they would go down.
No,
because you look at the quality of the side, and it still baffles me. And I can see where Top's coming from with those quotes, because you look back at that team, and you had Harvey Barnes, James Maddison, and Jamie Vardy, and he had some Yuri Tielemans, Johnny Evans.
You had top players.
He had some really good players. No way should that team have been a relegation team. Just as equally as you could say that 2016 shouldn't have been a Premier League title winning team. But it is. The reality is they didn't perform. You see Harvey Barnes, the way he's playing for Newcastle now. Yuri Tielemans is playing a really important role at Aston Villa. They were good players, but
that was
produce a team performance.
It was a big point though, with obviously keeping Brendan Rodgers at the club that season. You know how bad things got with results and that. A lot of fans said he should have gone sooner. He probably should have. The credit were in the back that he'd won the FA Cup. But you've got to, as a club, take that stamp on it and think, yeah, this isn't working here. We can't afford to keep him. Obviously, he were on a lot of money, wasn't he, Rob? Let's not beat around the bush here. He was on quite a bit of money for the club to sack him at the time. And in that summer, it was the case that we'd sell Wesley Fofana for 75 million quid, but then bring Wout Faes in for 15 million pound. And then Brendan reiterated that summer and said, we need a big rebuild here. We need about 3-4 new players, fresh faces to come in to make this work. And obviously he didn't get what he'd wished for, what he said he was hoping for. Do you think that was when the spiral started to happen for Leicester, the wheels started to come off?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Brendan Rodgers was given the keys to the kingdom. No manager. And again, this is going back Leicester before with the identity, the way that Ranieri slipped in after Pearson, and the team didn't change the way they made the approach. The tactics in terms of recruitment didn't change. They still went and got, Kante in and Christian Fuchs, who had been identified under Nigel, and Steve Walsh, of course. And, there was an identity around the club then, and the manager sort of fitted into that. And Ranieri did, even though he's a completely different character to Nigel Pearson. Then when you have Brendan come in, you invest, I think, something like £8.5 million a year for him, and then they gave him free reign. And if you look at Brendan's career, he is a good coach, and he seems to have 2-3 year success rates. Then everything seems to go drastically, terribly wrong in the. I mean, this season at Celtic, his last season at Celtic was the same. And but Leicester were guilty of believing in him so much, they gave him everything he wanted. And then, when he'd spent all that money and then wanted more, there wasn't any more, because they knew that they were going to be close to the PSR threshold. And then obviously with the spiral in the relegation, that cost you a massive amount of money as well. And they've been trying to recover ever since. And there's no way they can recover until all those big contracts are gone. Because otherwise you're still carrying that huge wage bill with no reward, with no payback for it. So, because a lot of those players now, and the ones that have come in since as well, Harry Winks as well, you have to say, that they've got to get back to a level even keel and rebuild again. But make sure you've got an identity this time.
I agree. And this is where we've took the wrong path, haven't we? We used to be a club that'd buy players for cheap and sell them for big, and we'd make good money for them. We'd find these real hidden gems, and that when obviously we go back to when what's his name, really, Steve Walsh, and how good he was at recruiting when he recruited Kante and players like that to come into the club. Riyad Mahrez. And
you can't find those players now, though, Jack.
This is it.
It's a different world now.
Football's changed massively.
Very, very difficult to find players that are under the radar that other clubs aren't really looking at. Very difficult because of technology as well. You know, everybody knows everybody. I mean, everybody knows the players are in Leicester's academy.
Yeah.
You know, you've seen a number of players being poached away over the last few years, and there was a lot of people sniffing around Jeremy Monga. Everybody knows everything. There's no players under the radar anymore. It'd be nigh impossible, I think, to do what Leicester did with Steve Walsh leading the recruitment back then.
Rob, how do you respond to this, mate? Before we move on to talk about Director of Football John Rudkin. Over the boost talks about nothing in the interview gave me confidence. He can turn the club around. He says he didn't understand the fans' frustration. Do you think in the interview, do you think would you sit in there would have sort of said, okay, well, do you sort of not understand the frustrations in a way, not covered what fans wanted to hear from him, or how would you have took it in the way you thought he handled in everything that he did say regarding what he said about the fans?
Well, I kicked off the interview and I thought it was important to address the immediate temperature.
Yeah.
He'd obviously been at the game the day before. He could feel the atmosphere around the ground. Doesn't help when you concede after 4 minutes from a long throw. But you know, he would have been under no illusion how the fans felt that game. So the first question I asked was, "What did you think of that? How did that make you feel? Do you understand where the fans are coming from?" And he said he shared their pain. You know, he said it hurts him just as much as it hurts supporters, and he said it as an owner, perhaps even more so, because he watches the game when he's not in England. He watches the games at 3 o'clock in the morning over there. For an 8 o'clock kickoff here would be like 3 o'clock in the morning in Thailand. That's what he said. I mean, I doubt anything he said will have appeased all the fans or pleased all the fans. And in fact, you know, his detractors would still be detractors, I'm sure, after the interviews. But my own personal opinion is I believed him when he said he felt the pain as well. As fans, I mean, that club must mean a lot to him because of his father. It must mean a lot to his family because of what they've experienced there since 2010. I know that there's a lot of pressure back in Thailand as well, because it's a huge source of pride to the country as well. When Leicester City were in the Premier League, to have a Thai-owned Premier League club. So there would have been a lot of pressure back home as well. So, you know, I didn't get the impression that he didn't understand where the fans are coming from. He did say that he thought he hoped that fans would get behind the players now for the rest of the season because they don't want to end up in League One. And I think we could all agree with that, couldn't we? Nobody wants to see Leicester City in League One. I mean, you know, relegation from the Premier League was a big enough blow. I mean, that would be just... So, yeah, big half end of the season ahead, really. And so these appointments are absolutely critical. Technical director in, get the right manager in. Whether that's until the end of the season, I prefer that. But let's see who's available.
I agree. Let's talk about John Rudkin. So the guy's under a lot of scrutiny, I'll be honest, with all the decisions he's made and all that. Johnny seemed to be like a bad cop, but we won the Premier League because of him. That's what John Percy's put it down as. I don't know what his exact words were, top when, because you would have sat around that table when this obviously got merged. During this turbulent period in Leicester's history, Rudkin has emerged as number one target for supporters, right? Leicester's former academy director, Rudkin, was promoted to director of football in 2014, and Srivaddhanaprabha's support has been unwavering. That support has remained despite many fans regarding Rudkin as chief responsible for poor recruitment, overspending, allowing too many players to leave for nothing, and the disintegrated of the club's culture. When asked about Rudkin's position, the response from top is unlikely to cheer up those fans calling for change. John is like a bad cop. We won the Premier League. It was because of John too, but nobody talks about that anymore. We are trying to find a black spot in a white sheet all the time, which is normal. I do the same. Many clubs make mistakes. No club buys the right players all the time. We used to be very good, but we have to be clear so that the scouting team can work towards the system. It's not about John choosing players alone, so blame him. I never blame anybody. everyone has to share the responsibility, all four of us.
Context there's a little bit missed out. What he was meaning there is what I've discussed with you on here many times, how the club recruit.
Right.
It was always the owner, director of football, head of recruitment and manager around the table, and the manager will identify the areas of the team he wants to strengthen. The the head of recruitment will then, and his scouting team will then go and find options for those positions. They will then debate it, discuss it with the owner and with the director of football, and they will decide who the main targets are, who's a backup, who's C, who's D, and then it'll be up to the director of football to go and make those deals. That's how it's always worked there, and they still work there. So when they departed from that a little bit, now, and I put this to Top, and he disagreed with me. He said it was wrong. It did feel like that Brendan Rodgers was basically giving whatever he wanted, and there wasn't that sort of scrutiny. Is this player the right player for us? There wasn't anybody pushing back a little bit and going, well, hang on a second, Yannick Vestergaard's completely different to the defenders you've had before. It didn't feel like there was that. And he sort of disagreed with that a little bit and said it wasn't down to one person. It was all four was accountable. So that's to the context of that quote. That's what he was trying to say, that, you know, it's a collective decision to bring in these certain players and recruitment. So it's a collective responsibility. It should be a collective blame. But he was saying that's just the context on that quote.
Yeah, the thing is with Rudkin, he's made a lot of mistakes, right? And I do feel with Todd that he hadn't held him accountable for these decisions. You know, he's relied on him to go and trust him with the business and that over here, and to make these decisions. Obviously, the last ball falls at the owner, doesn't it? The last ball. So it's basically a goalkeeper, and Rudkin is a defender. He's got to go and pass it back to the goalkeeper to get a bloody kick on again. So I physically, I think they've made a lot of big mistakes. I do physically, but then you sort of, I think the anger is, Rob, that with Rudkin, all these decisions have happened and a lot of the big mistakes have been made, but it feels like they're too late to sort of change it. But then I sort of look at it if I take my rose bloody tinted glasses off, I sort of say that Rudkin's never been held accountable for these bad decisions that have been made. Top sits there and says, "Yeah, but I'm not one to point fingers." But you've got to, in a business, in a club, in a football club, you've got to always point the finger at the people who have made these mistakes and punish them for them. And if you're not willing to do that, then where does that hold you as a club?
Yeah, well, in terms of the decision making at the club, I think John's role is a little bit overplayed,
right?
Because Top makes the big decisions.
Yeah, he's the man at the top, ain't he? Like Vishai were when obviously he were here with Rudkin and Top underneath him, basically.
I think the big issue with John Rudkin is that he just believed in Brendan too much in the end. I think that was the big, you know, as I said, you know, all that's money spent then, the investment, the new contracts and that. This is why I keep going back to this model. They've got to get their identity right with the new technical director who's got to work with a manager that they can work together. And that manager, the club's got to have the philosophy that any manager that comes in has got to fit that philosophy from now on. Because the recruitment of managers bounced all over the place, different styles, different approaches. Brendan had great success, and it was an amazing time. Those winning the FA Cup, what an achievement that is. The first time the club's ever done it. But then when you start investing and backing him to the extent that they did in terms of the money spent on players, but more importantly, the contracts and the length of contracts that were committed on the understanding that that's what Brendan wanted. When you back your manager to that extent, when it all goes wrong, the manager leaves, you're left to pick up the pieces. You're left with that burden to carry. That has been John Rudkin's biggest problem, that he gave Brendan everything he wanted effectively. And he would have done so with Top's backing. He doesn't work independently from the ownership of the club.
No, he makes the last decision, doesn't he, Top?
Top always makes the last decision.
Yeah.
But what he relies on is people to talk to him, to inform him. And since the death of Vichai, and then obviously the Susan situation, there's only been one person. So that's what I'm saying. Let's judge him now from when more people come in and you've got a bit more, a few more voices, a few more opinions around the club that he can listen to and then make decisions based on that.
What's your thoughts on this one, what Scott said? Should there be more responsibility on recruitment places on the manager / head of recruitment, allowing the director of football to focus on the long-term director of the club / loans / academy?
Well, as I've tried to explain, John doesn't make the signings. He doesn't identify the targets. He doesn't identify which areas the team need strengthening. It's the manager that decides what he needs, and he'll go, you know what managers are like, they always want more. They will go then and to a recruitment meeting and say, this is what we want. What have you got up your Martin Glover? What have you got up your sleeve? Who could fill this role? This is the type of player I want. A left back. I want a left back that's comfortable getting forwards, but has got the athleticism to defend spacing behind. Go and get me some examples. John's role, the director of football's role, is basically to do the deals and make sure he gets a good deal. Yeah, I mean, I think if people are going to really scrutinise Rudkin, you can certainly look at some of the deals and some of the contracts that he's agreed, but ultimately would have been agreed by top. But that's the area really. But in terms of John Rudkin being, a big decision maker at the football club, I think that's false narrative. I don't think that's actually the case.
Fair enough. So, Rob, we're living with the past of haunting the present. Leicester expect to hear the outcome of their legal row with the Premier League for alleged breaches soon. The case was heard in November, and a range of punishments are possible, including a points deduction, transfer ban, and a fine. Every year, we try to comply with the rules, and that is super difficult. We can't breathe, says Top, putting both hands around his throat. We did not plan to go down. Which I don't think bloody any club would have planned to bloody go down that season, Rob, when they did get relegated.
Nobody plans to get relegated.
I think it shocked a lot of people when they never planned for it. It's impacted a lot of financials. PSR's a challenge. It's testing every club now, and Leicester are the same in the past. Nobody knew what would happen, but we're living with the past that's haunting the present. With such tough restrictions, Leicester can only recruit loan signings before the transfer deadline. Their current ply has increased calls for Srivaddhanaprabha. That's obviously that's how you pronounce it. To sell the club.
Srivaddhanaprabha.
Is that how you pronounce it? Right,
yeah. Okay. Somebody told me it was like, think of the snooker player. Whatnot. Yeah, put that in the middle. Srivaddhanaprabha.
But he insists there are no plans to move aside. So he's basically saying that he's not going to sell the club. No. PSR is a massive thing.
Yeah.
So what is your thoughts on the whole PSR situation?
Right. Hopefully, we're going to find out soon what the verdict is. Or the legal... all the legal presentations were done at the end of last year.
Yeah.
It's now been waiting for the independent commission to consider all the evidence and then come to their conclusion, which will then, the club need to know. They need to know quickly because it could affect what they do in this transfer window. I got a feeling it might stretch out a little bit, which would not help Leicester's cause. And I've got a feeling it could be, well, it's very hard to speculate exactly how many points, but I think there's a points deduction certainly come in. And whether that, and these are three charges that have come from the Premier League, and one of the aspects of it is aggravating circumstances, basically failing to cooperate with the Premier League. Now, if the Premier League, if it comes out in their favour and Leicester appeal and they don't, and they don't win their appeal, then that could be a green light for the EFL to say, well, you've breached in the past. It's quite clearly now you've been done by the Premier League. We're going to restrict your recruitment. We're going to put a business plan on you some way. That would be the biggest fear, because that would really tie your hands behind your back again moving forwards. I just hope that whatever comes out in the coming days of PSR, that it's something they can draw a line under. for everybody's sake and move on, because PSR has been an embarrassment, hasn't it, to the Premier League? You know, I mean, how many times do people say, well, what about Man City? What about Chelsea? Yeah, it does feel like that, doesn't it? And it only seems to punish certain clubs, and it's not really a big problem for others. So I don't think that can be possible. If it's supposed to bring fairness to the game, it's doing the opposite. So I think really I'd be happy with, like VAR, be happy with if they weren't in the game. But here you are, 2026, and we've got them. So you have to deal with them. But I just hope that whatever comes Leicester's way, they can say, okay, let's try and move on from this now, and let's make sure that we're under PSR in the future and we stay there.
Fair enough. Susan Whelan, right? She left not long ago. Top did reiterate about Susan Whelan in the interview. He put, I think she did very well for the family, for myself and everything. But when the time is right, I think we need to change something. There are 3 positions that we are looking to set in the structure now. I hope soon, very soon, we'll have them. So they are going to be bringing in a technical director now. Susan Whelan was obviously a chief executive, which is Monica's job at the minute, in it to oversee for now. Whether Monica's going to be taking a permanent role at Leicester City when things come to call for when a new chief executive comes in a different role, then I don't know. But what's your thoughts on the Susan Whelan thing, Rob, and the 3 roles that are coming up here? Because I don't know if people understand the 3 new roles that are being sorted behind the scenes.
I've got a lot of sympathy for Susan Whelan, because I thought the club was run very well commercially.
Yeah.
But the expenditure on the football side far exceeded the revenue coming in, especially after COVID. So, and the world changed COVID. People just weren't spending the same amount of money in terms of sponsorships, commercial deals. So I got a lot of sympathy for her, because that was her baby, was the other side of the club. The football side, which is the part that's gone really dramatically wrong over the last few years, that she didn't really have a massive influence on that. Highly respected in the Premier League boardroom as well. When they had Premier League meetings, you know, she didn't speak very often, I'm told, but when she did, everybody listened and respected what she said. I think she did a fantastic job for the club. Top's decided he wants to have a fresh start with a new chief executive. That's his prerogative. But I just feel it's a little bit harsh on Susan, to be fair. But she had a great stint at the club. Nice lady as well, very dignified. And so best of luck to her in the future.
Yeah, I think I see. Yes, she made a couple of mistakes, but you know, the bigger decisions fall obviously bigger than her. Yes, she left, which you know, she got the blame for obviously things that were happening at the club. Maybe it weren't really in her department, most of it, to be fair, but she did take the criticism for it, and they did change in the end, didn't they? And obviously she left and not others. Leicester's plans to expand the stadium are obviously on hold now, aren't they? Due to not being in the Premier League. Apparently they're going to revisit next time they're in the Premier League.
Again, this is another COVID impact as well, because, you know, when you're costing materials, I mean, the costings for the materials went through the roof through COVID, because there was a global shortage of the materials required, and that price has never really come down. So obviously when you've done your costings pre-COVID for that project, you know, it's still going to be incredibly expensive to do. But then, you know, when that doubles because of COVID, and then you get the hit of being relegated as well, it's something you park straight away, because it becomes not a priority. But if they could ever get that done, what a massive boost that would be, because PSR is all measured against your revenue. So if you can dramatically boost your revenue, it gives you so much more leeway in terms of what you're spending on the football side of the club.
What's Alan said? The fan base is toxic. You're also negative. We need to realise we are and have always been a championship club who got lucky for a few years. The team is mid-table championship team.
I wouldn't say they were lucky. I mean, you know, a lot of criticism is aimed at Top and the way the club's been run over recent years, and that's fair enough. But they're also very well run for for a number of years. In fact, they were held up as the model for clubs of that size in the Premier League for a number of years, to the extent where Leeds United.
We used to be a yo-yo club, didn't we, way before?
Yeah. But then you had serious investment come in at a time when there wasn't a massive amount of investment in the club. And they had great success off the back of it. It's just been a very challenging time over the last 4 or 5 years for them. I do agree to some extent with Top that COVID played a big part, but I also believe there's a number of controllable factors that they made mistakes on that have contributed massively to the situation that they now find themselves in.
Yeah, I agree. Rob, the last one I'm going to leave you with then. I'll tell you what, I'm going to ask you about the new manager quickly. What is your thoughts regarding the new manager? Obviously, King's going to take charge now. Yeah. So what do you reckon regarding the new manager and that now? I know you obviously spoke about giving someone a 6-month contract until they actually can find a permanent manager properly and actually go out and have a look now. Do you think that will be the way forward, or do you reckon, because obviously Gary Rowett's name has been obviously mentioned on it? And
and he came in on a short-term basis at Birmingham when they got relegated to League One, and they did have a little bit of a bounce under him towards the end, but the damage was already done under Wayne Rooney then. He is a steady pair of hands. If he came in and did the role until the end of the season, I think you would certainly see them be defensively a lot more structured, even though there's issues with personnel there, a lack of. But I think the way he'd set the team up would be a lot more pragmatic. They wouldn't be so open. I think he's a good coach, actually, and he's worked with youngsters in the past as well, and he's got the connection to the football club. I wouldn't at all be against Gary Rowett coming in. I know a lot of fans have mentioned Nigel. Nigel he's available. If the club certainly plays a big role in his life in the past, it can do again at some stage. I just wonder whether there's too much history there a little bit. But somebody like, for me, I think they need a steady pair of hands between now and the end of the season to come in to help Kingy as well, give Kingy the benefit of their experience, and just steady the ship, because as I said, you just got to tread water for us this season, and then you can make big decisions about manager and that next season, and the dog started squeaking the toys. That's probably my cue to leave.
There we go. Rob Booba, quickly. He's going to be leaving the club.
It's never worked.
80 grand. What we spent.
It's never worked.
£1 million in 2021.
It's never worked, and he wanted it to work because his daughter was born in Leicester, and he wanted it to make it work. But we just never saw the consistency. I mean, Booba's probably the poster boy for this team over the last few years in terms of inconsistencies. So one minute he looks like the player you think he could possibly be, a league and championship winner, and then other games he just looks disinterested. But there's a few players who've looked like that, hasn't there?
Well, there we go. Right, so it'd be a new bloody era for Leicester City then. Now Tot's spoken, and see if we can actually draw this line and not carry on the way we were previous. So let's see what happens then, Rob. Thanks for the chat, Rob. Really appreciate it, mate. All the best. We'll catch you again soon. That was Rob Tanner then. Hopefully we've answered all your questions regarding everything, what got said in the interview. Let's see if actions can speak louder than words then, is what the way forward is. Fingers crossed. Andy King takes charge of Leicester City, is interim boss on Saturday, where Connor Cody is going to Charlton. Bloody I'd have had enough of him already, but really appreciate everyone coming in. Like I say, you guys' support isn't wavering on the channel. We appreciate it. 102 of you in, so if you can hit that like button, that'd be appreciated. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you haven't subscribed already. Please get down and do so. It'd help me out massively. And appreciate it. Rich, Alan, Martin, everybody in the chat. Appreciate it as always. Go check out the Evening Whistle as we sat down and looked at all the managers, what could possibly come to Leicester City Football Club. Russell Martin's on there, Gary Rowett, Stephen Gerrard, and a lot of other managers. Can we believe things will get better and believe the board? Well, let's see what happens then, shall we see? And then we'll go from there. But Bouba Samari is also leaving Leicester City to join a Qatar side. So let me know your thoughts on that one. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care. Yeah, let's get behind the lads on Saturday and see how it goes. Fingers crossed. And let's bloody hope we can pick up 3 points to start off Andy King's stint as interim manager. But no, thanks again, everyone. Take care. I'll catch you soon.